Hey everybody, it's Daniel here from Zen Bones Holistic Health, and in honor of this time of the year, the fall into the winter, the time of giving with all the holidays and gratitude and appreciation, I wanted to talk a little bit about, one, I'm very excited that we have been visiting the fine folks over at Our Voice NC and supporting their staff there with some hands-on massage time. We've been bringing the massage chairs and the massage tables over to those fine people at Our Voice, and it's been really awesome to see how much they've appreciated and benefited from even just the 10 or 15 minutes that we've been able to give each of them. But throughout December, we've gone over there for a few hours each week, let everybody have some time to rejuvenate, to come back to center, to take some breaths, and to remember that when we finally allow that time for relaxation, that it really doesn't take much for the body to get a huge boost of that time. It really doesn't take much for the body to come back to center and to start allowing the nervous system to balance and certain processes in the body to happen. So in honor of the support of Our Voice, in honor of this time of giving and gratitude, I want to talk to everybody about what I feel is one of the biggest gifts that I have to give in my practice, which is being trauma-informed and being able to hold a space for the element, the mental, emotional, the psychological aspects that can come up, that do have implications and are affected in positive ways through this work that we do here, through the hands-on therapies. Because we need to deepen everyone's understanding that when you come and get a massage on a table, there are so many more layers of you that are being affected than just the mechanical muscle contractions and expansion. Facilitating the physical, mechanical release is one thing that is very good and is very beneficial to receive massage to loosen your stiff muscles, but there's so much more going on. And skilled practitioners, taking the information that's available through working with you, through their hands, their sensitivity, can obviously tell where your knots and your cramps are and where your muscles are tight. But beyond that, the real magic to me is that the information that starts coming through starts to give us a general sense of where your mental, psychological, or emotional holding might be that's causing your body at a nervous system level to be in these holding patterns based on traumatic experiences that we might not even remember. And the best way to illustrate this, because we come from the perspective of artistry, and it's very hard to explain to people how much information tactile sensation is able to give us. And also, I'm not a scientist. I'm curious about the nervous system. I see its reflections in my practice, and I see the intuitive side of it. But for people who are more of this rational and logical mind, I probably don't have the vocabulary to really bring you awareness of the mechanics in place. But I can tell you my personal story. I have always suspected that I had a traumatic head injury as a child. And I don't know when I first got the idea, but there's a little spot called the bump of knowledge, the bump of wisdom on the occiput, which is the bottom of the skull in the back, right before the squishy part. And right in the center is the occipital protuberance. Now, my occipital protuberance protrudes a little bit extra, and it always has. So I always kind of suspected, I wonder if I bumped my head. Does everyone have this bump? I would check with my friends and families and rub the back of their head and tell them to rub mine. I said, do you have this bump on your head? Why is mine so big? I don't understand. Nobody else has this extra big bump on the back of their head. So I'd always kind of felt intuitively that some part of me knew that I had a traumatic head injury. And I had always suspected there was this one incident, this sledding incident, and the memories, while vague and various impressions that weren't very solid, there were things that came up across my life, little blips of memory that caused me to think that this was due to a sledding accident. Maybe around 5 years old, 6 years old. And bits and pieces throughout my life, I would have these spontaneous little rememberings, but I never had anything concrete to go on to really prove it to myself that this is what happened. That is until craniosacral therapy. Now, as Earth was going through her craniosacral trainings before I decided to go on this journey as well, I was the practice partner, and so I received quite a few craniosacral therapy sessions. It wasn't until the third session that I had a vivid flashback. I could see the gray sky, I could see the line of trees, I saw the baseball field that I grew up across the street from my house, and I saw and felt exactly what it was like to relive that memory. And there was anger and fear, and it was like this feeling of, I got stuck on the little round sled, the disc sled, and I got stuck backwards, and so I went down the hill like this, backwards, screaming, and all of that was translating to this very tangible, very physical sensation. It had emotional information, it had physical information, it was in my body, it was in this sort of like holding on and holding my head and neck. Very tense, very tight. And as she was working on releasing that stuff for me, I was there. I was transported back, like vividly as day. I closed my eyes and I could see the whole entire picture. And I knew for a fact that I went down that hill backwards, and when I got to the bottom, I hit my head on the ice, straight back, very steep, very long hill, very, very scary and very traumatic experience for a 5-year-old. And, yeah, I remember screaming and blacking out, and then being in my mom and dad's arms. They had to run down the hill to come get me. Now, I talked to mom and dad, and it's okay, mom and dad, don't worry, lots of things like this happen. I don't expect you to remember, but they don't remember a specific instance. I've asked questions like, do you remember me hitting my head as a child? Do you remember this? And no conclusive evidence from mom and dad, but it's okay, because through the craniosacral therapy, the part of my body that had been in this neurological holding pattern and out of fear and pain, because I believe, the body becomes rigid and blocks these things off from us and creates these areas of sort of these dark spots that kind of, if we'll use the metaphor of like having a body map, these dark things just sort of like fall off the map, and they kind of get secluded and isolated and separated so that we don't, it's a protection mechanism, because during those moments of experiencing this again, it was very painful, it was very traumatic and very emotional for me. And I'm 31 years old, this is now 25 or 26 years ago. The body and the psychology, or the body and the psyche, is walling these things off to protect us from that painful experience. Now, that's good and bad. Obviously, we don't want to be living in that trauma space every day, and if I really cracked my head, it probably was for the best that my body, the inflammation and the calcium came and stiffened everything up, froze it solid so that at least it would be stable and not damage anymore, because this is the delicate operating system that governs our entire experience. So if we're in a constant state of fragmentation and trauma, we can't live life that way. So there's benefit of what the body's doing. There's a rhyme and a reason for what it's doing. But obviously, if we want to have a more full expression, and we want to be more embodied, and we want to be more joyous in our physical expression with less pain, this stuff has to be experienced and dug out and examined and contended with so that it can be released. So what does it mean to be trauma informed as a bodywork practitioner? Well, it's knowing that there's more than just the tissue. I always had a friend that the issues are in the tissues, is what he would always say. So knowing that knowing that when we approach someone who's got a frozen shoulder or an injury or a back problem, that there may be a traumatic injury, and maybe not even an injury, but a traumatic experience that's so deep in the past, in the subconscious, that it may not be consciously realized, or it may not have been consciously realized for, decades. And what is that going to feel like, and what is that experience going to be like when we start getting in there and digging it up and poking it and say, hey, what's this about? Hey, wake up, tissue. What's going on in here? So the best practitioners that I've worked with, the best practitioners that have taught me, you don't go in there elbows blazing and start tearing stuff up. And people think that they need this. So I get a lot of people who are like, can you just dive your elbows straight into my back, or step on me, or jump on me? And while we always want to give people what they want and have a positive experience, it's also another layer of, we'll say micro trauma, to be aggressively pursuing that stuff. We really want to relax into everything. We want the body to breathe everything to the surface and slowly sift through the layers, not drill straight down to the heart of the problem. We need to have compassion for the process, that it will take time, and that it will need to be unspooled from this knot of fibers that have gathered there to protect us from something that we don't want to experience, because it's painful, it's emotionally painful, it's physically painful. So being trauma-informed to us as body workers means understanding that everyone has had a long road to this moment now, and the body and the personality and all of these facets of ourselves have developed strategies, coping mechanisms, behavior patterns that have got us to this moment now. They have helped us survive to get here. And now, getting on the table, we have an opportunity to show you that if you choose, we can bring these things gently to the surface, look at them, and decide if they're really, truly needed. And if not, we can let them go. And that's where the magic happens. So I invite you to reflect on this and to really allow it to inform your decision making when choosing to work with practitioners of any sort. It's important to ask these questions. Are you trauma informed? Do you understand? The bodywork and massage industry has historically, because of the culture in America, had a very hands-off approach. We want you to feel comfortable. We want you to feel safe. We don't really want to push your boundaries and start explaining all of these things that might be out of your comfort zone. But the times are changing, and it really is important for us to make this connection with you so that you understand when you see somebody that they're operating at this level of awareness to really help you beyond just a momentary relief of physical pain. And we need to be able to educate you so that you can start to understand that this is why there's such a wide difference between practitioners. And in this way, when we start to have this conversation, we're laying the foundation for improving the industry in such an amazing way. So I thank you for taking the time to listen to this, to get educated, and I can't wait to see you. Take care.